Hey guys, welcome to AP Mindset, a channel created to truly understand how to solve AP questions and understand rather than just memorize. To clarify, this is not going to be a channel where we're just going to be going over all the content or all the materials you need to know. Unfortunately, that's not what this is. So, if you're getting tested on all the details, you need to be able to do that yourself. But I would recommend having flashcards or active recall to do those things. Here we're going to be focusing on actually understanding the information, and then we're going to go ahead and do practice questions to clear it up and really go through how you should be answering these questions. For reference, I got a 5 on my AP exam, so these are the tricks I used when I barely studied. So, AP Biology Unit 1 is all about life. So, for a quick summary, we have 1.1 Structure of Water and Hydrogen Bonding, Elements of Life, Introduction to Macromolecules, Carbohydrates, Lipids, Nucleic Acids, and Proteins. So, today we're going to be focusing on the structure of water and hydrogen bonding. So, before we start, I want you to take a look at this. So, this you can find in the CED for AP Bio, which, if you don't know what that is, that's the course and exam description. And a lot of people don't take a look at this, which is why they struggle so much. So, there's a bunch of resources on there, and you should definitely check it out as it tells you what type of learning you should be doing and practices. But this is the one for 1.1. And so we can see that the big idea is system interactions. So, how does one thing influence other things? And the recommended skill is visual representations. So, that means you should probably be practicing how to draw and create these representations on your own to see if you actually know how to do it. So, it says to explain how the properties of water that result from its polarity and hydrogen bonding affect its biological function. So I wanted to think about for a second. What exactly is water? Well, we drink it, we use it to shower, to clean ourselves, but have you ever thought what enables it to be the thing that sustains life? Because that is what differentiates Earth from other planets. And so you have the answers right here besides the objective in the essential knowledge. So we're going to be focusing on the polarity, the high specific heat capacity, the high heat of vaporization, and then the cohesion, adhesion, and surface tension. Okay, to start off, polarity. So, a lot of people go into AP Bio not having a good foundation of chem. Either they've taken it have either they've taken it and it's been a bunch of years, or they didn't understand it, or they just haven't taken it yet, which both cases are fine. But it's crucial that you understand the structure. So, polarity, what does that mean? Because a lot of people hear this word, but they don't know what that is referring to. So, this is a molecule of water. So, I hope you know what a molecule is. But a molecule is just a unit, right? It's a unit. So, for water, you have a glass of water, but that's not the tiniest component of water. So, oxygen would be an atom, and H2O or water would be a molecule. So this is the smallest component that water will go to. So polarity is a concept in chemistry and biology in which there there's electrons, right? In each atom there's electrons. Oxygen, as you can see in both these diagrams, there's 6 electrons. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 outer electrons. Don't look at the inner ones. So you have 6 outer electrons, and hydrogen has 1, right? So to form water, there is covalent bonding going on, which means basically oxygen has 6, right? So it shares one of them to hydrogen and the other one to the other hydrogen. And similarly, hydrogen has 1, so it shares it with oxygen. So for an atom to be satisfied or happy or stable, it has basic needs, and its goal in life basically is to reach a complete octet, which means to have 8 in its outer shell. Obviously for hydrogen it's 2 because it has so less, but at least for oxygen it really wants to complete those 8. So once it borrows hydrogens, look, let's count how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And hydrogen, if you count them, it has 1, 2, and then the other hydrogen, 1, 2. So this is what they're doing, is that they're sharing the electrons together. So polarity is a concept in which one atom in a molecule is in covalent bonding is more electronegative than the other one. And electronegativity is mainly just how well the atom or element has the ability to attract electrons when they're sharing. So if you look at the periodic table, hydrogen's all the way here and oxygen's all the way over here. And a general rule of thumb in electronegativity is that as you go up and to the right of the periodic table, electronegativity increases. So there's a vast difference in electronegativity between hydrogen and oxygen. So what that does is oxygen ends up, as many of your teachers might have described it, it hogs the electrons. So basically that just means there's a stronger pull of the electrons, which are negative, towards the oxygen rather than the hydrogen. And what that does is usually there will be a balanced charge, right? There will be no net charge, so zero. But what happens is, due to the fact that oxygen has a bit more of a pull towards it, there will be a partial negative charge. So this is what the lowercase Greek delta, it stands for a partial negative, and this is partial positive, right? So in essence, what that means is that there's sort of its own reaction happening within. So it would sort of okay. So, anyways, sorry for the interruption. But what happens is that it's unequal. It's not being shared equally. And so what that does is, since when there's no net charge, you can't really have sort of an attraction. So if you've ever seen a magnet, you know that one side is negative, one side is positive, right? If there's if you put a positive and a positive together, there's not going to be anything going on. And if there's no negative or positive, then you can't really be attracting anything. But since it's present in this, what happens is this. So, it's a lot going on, but this is how it will happen. So, there's a negative here, a partial negative, a partial positive. So, the partial positive will bond with the partial negative. There will be a weak attraction. Hydrogen bonds are weak, right? They're weak attractive forces. Later, if you learn in chemistry, you'll learn about intermolecular forces, but that's like a whole other category. Anyways, so you'll have this bonding or this attractive force going on, correct? And between the oxygen and the hydrogens of different water molecules. This is what's happening. So instead of having just this, you have within these, you have different water molecules hydrogen bonding with each other. And so what that happens is, as you can see, there's like this network going on, and it's like a cohesive network. And so that's what polarity really refers to in hydrogen bonding. And soon you'll see why this network is so important and carries out so many functions, because it's really unique. Not a lot of molecules exhibit this, which is why water is so unique. So let's talk about high specific heat, or high heat of vaporization. So when you have the hydrogen bonds, or the network of hydrogen bonds as shown before, there needs to be a lot of energy or a lot of heat that goes into it to break these apart, right? So normally what happens is that you're increasing the kinetic energy, right? So like you're increasing the motion of a substance. However, because the energy needs to break these hydrogen bonds, it's not increasing the overall kinetic energy. So what's happening is that the temperature rises slower, which is why it's harder for water to heat up. So for example, if you put a pan on the stove, it'll heat up immediately, whereas if you put water, it'll take longer. And so that ties into high heat of vaporization. So vaporization is just water turning from a liquid form into a gaseous form, right? So escaping water takes a lot of heat with it, which creates that cooling effect. And it takes a lot of energy to cause that vaporization. So that leads us to talk about cohesion. So cohesion is basically when water molecules stick to each other. So you have one water molecule, another water molecule. That's basically what you see in hydrogen bonding, correct? And so that influences surface tension. So surface tension is basically what causes those dewdrops to form, or if you've ever seen a bug, there's these specific bugs that walk across the water, correct? And so that's possible by surface tension. So here you have cohesive properties going on, so water molecules can interact with each other. But at the top, there's no more forces for them to be attracting, or no more, okay, no more water molecules for them to be bonding with. So it creates this sort of curve and it's pulling them inwards. And so it pushes it out in all directions. And so there's this sort of thick, not thick, but sturdy layer above, which is why these dewdrops form and why those insects are allowed to walk. Obviously, if we do that, it won't work because we're too heavy. But with them, it will work because it's strong enough to sustain that. And then we have adhesion, which is sort of the opposite. So, adhesion is when water sticks to other substances. So, it's attraction from water molecules to other molecules with charged particles. So, there's attractive forces going on. So, the hydrogen, remember, it has a partial positive, right? So, instead of the net force of it, or the net molecule being attracted, the hydrogen has a partial positive charge. And so, if there's a partial negative charge in this, or there's a negative charge in this wood, it seems, then the water is going to stick to it. And so this is what you see is happening. So it starts sticking to other things, which if you notice, if you've tried to clean up water on some substances like glass, it doesn't readily come off. So then you have cohesion and adhesion. So this is basically so we're just comparing them. So this diagram is really helpful in my opinion. So adhesion is the water molecule sticking to another polar or charged object, and cohesion is the water molecule sticking together. I think this is really helpful if you don't understand the differences. And so these both work together to form a meniscus and for capillary action. So capillary action is extremely important as it's a phenomena that you can observe in plants, right? So due to cohesion, the water molecules stay together. You see this little train? So water molecules stay together, and as one is pulled upward, the other is also pulled upward. And so why is one pulled upward? Well, that's due to adhesion. Because the because there's a connection with the xylem, then it starts to, because of adhesive forces, it starts to pull it upward, which causes the rest to pull upward. So that's how it works, basically just pulling it upward. And this is essential. This is what you need to take away from it, is that it helps deliver the water to the rest of the plant, because that's what the function is. A lot of people just memorize it, but don't know what function it serves. But that's the point, because remember, AP Biology is how is these elements and these functions of life helping achieve life, or functions that an organism needs. And so here you have formia meniscus, which is basically, if you've ever seen in a tube, you'll have like either this like caving in or out. And usually if you have a caving in, that means that adhesive forces are stronger than cohesive forces. And if you have a caving out, so like a bump, that means that cohesive forces are stronger, which you would see. Remember when we talked about surface tension and it's pulled inward? Well, that's where you would see it. Okay, so this was mainly all we needed to know. Due to it, I also want to add one other thing, is that in ice, so ice is a crystalline structure of water, correct? So it's a crystalline lattice structure, and so what happens is that it's spread farther apart. Let me see here. Okay, so here if you see in a solid, it's spread farther apart, and you can see these diamonds being formed. So it's more rigid, correct? And so you can see in ice, when lakes ice over, they have this very rigid structure that's hard to break through. And that's essential because it maintains and regulates the temperature underneath in the lake, which helps the what do you call it, wildlife or organisms beneath, and that's why they can survive. And so I would say throughout any AP course, what do you need to take away is what you should be thinking of. So you should be taking away how do all of these functions or properties really help serve a function. So you have to think about the so what, why does it matter? Okay, that's mostly all we'll be covering. Like, don't complicate it. You don't need to know every single little molecule or anything. It's not like a PhD. But what we will do now is go over to Khan Academy, which are really similar to the AP tests. Go over there and go through a couple questions together.